Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Today, of course, is September 7th, 2017, and we're back to a webinar, which is nice to have again. Last week, I got kind of screwed up with the whole summer schedule again. I had something else I had to attend to, so that's why I abruptly canceled it. But from now on in, we should be doing them back to our regular every 2 weeks. Okay, let's get jumping in right here with the monthly charts. Again, now these were pulled off on the 5th, okay? Haven't really changed all that radically. I mean, the key thing from the monthly charts obviously is the upper band level. All right, that's what we're monitoring. That's what we will continue to monitor to see if any of these markets close back inside the upper band. But as you can see here, we're roughly around the 2420 level. So we're still above that upper band. As for the Dow, we're around 21,000. So we're about 750 points above that upper band. The NASDAQ Composite about 6,000. So we're about 450 points above it. And here's light grade crude oil, okay? Here's the key thing that I'm looking at right now, 55.44, which of course is the mid band. So we're getting a little bit of a rally here in oil. It's going to be very interesting to see if it can take out that level. And we'll go over the XLE charts a little bit, but as far as I'm concerned, I think we're probably looking at a retest of that band. As we know, if it can't get through it, most likely it's going to start heading down and could end up ultimately going back to this 26 level. So we'll see. And by the way, the interesting thing about this chart is there's a couple of things happening here. Number one, the MACD has turned positive, and it has been positive for a while. And the money flow has been positive. So that's why at this point, I'm somewhat biased for a retest of that 55 level. So we're about, $7, $6 away from that. So it's going to be interesting to see if we, in fact, first of all, test it, and then see if it has the ability to get through it. And here's Apple, 143 upper band, trading at 162 as of the other day. So still about $20 above the upper band and basically showing a lot of strength, or I should say back to showing a lot of strength on Apple. All right, let's scope down. Here's the 60-minute chart. Okay, now a couple of interesting things here. Number one is you can see what a red arrow is over here. It's moved into a downtrend on the 21st. Just as of late, we were able to clear the mid-band. So we are back above the mid-band. 2453 is the upside level of 2500. Now, we have had a few days that closed above that level. So I do believe that 2500 is the objective. And then we scope further down to the 30-minute chart. We see that the 30 has moved into an uptrend. Okay, and that did that on the 1st. There's the 2453 level. Quite frankly, the other day, I was really surprised it got as low as 2446 down here. Right down here on that pivot low. I thought it would hold more at 2450 area, all right? So it took it out a little bit more. It took it out more than I would have expected or would have liked. And as you can see, it broke under the mid-band and then quickly recouped it. But again, that's right in there at the confirming line. So to me, that should be support. And I think today it's even holding its support. And we'll look at some live charts after the PowerPoints close down. But here's the VIX, 60-minute chart of the VIX. You can see that's in an uptrend. The levels have really condensed. Okay, so the upper level is 1406. We stopped exactly at 1406 on the 5th, which, by the way, happens to be my birthday. And then 1250, of course, the major 1250 line. Underneath that's 1094. What's it say? Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Andrew. I actually thought it was a good opportunity to get long on the S&P. But the thing that had me a little confused was it did take out 2453 by a little bit more than I expected. But yeah, it's interesting because, here the market gaps down. Everybody's expecting the market to go to hell in a handbasket, okay? And, it promptly just stops and reverses. And here's one of the reasons it reversed. I mean, look, it stopped exactly at that 1406 line to the tick. And again, the numbers have condensed on the VIX. All right, I think they were a little bit wider, so now we're getting a narrowing of the VIX, which is kind of interesting to me because I'm not 100% certain what the implication of that is, but it probably means that when the VIX does start to move, there's going to be some really big moves in the VIX. But here's the 30-minute chart. The 30 is in a downtrend. It's kind of interesting. It's the exact opposite of the S&P. We've got the 30 in a downtrend, 60 in an uptrend. The S&P 30 is in an uptrend, 60 is in a downtrend. And ideally, what we'd want to see here is the 60 for the S&P to move back into an uptrend. And then everything would be in alignment. And at that point, you'd have hopefully an oversold condition, and you could get long the market. And there'd be hopefully a very nice run after that. But again, we are very close to the upside objective, which is that 2,500. And then here's the Qs. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Here's the Qs, 60-minute. And again, this is kind of interesting when we compare the Qs to the S&P 500 because you can see even though the Qs on the 60 chart is in a downtrend, it's showing more strength. It's showing more strength vis-a-vis the fact that the moving averages are moving up, okay, and moving up and to the right. It hit the upper band here the other day and pulled back. And basically, this is more of what I was talking about. It stopped right at the support line. And yesterday, it came back up to close just under the upside confirming line, which is 145.31. It closed at 145.13. So it's really within a whisper of that. And then we scope down to the 30-minute, we see that's in an uptrend. Okay, and there's the 145.31 line. And I would suspect we close above that. And we have two closes above it. The objective will be up to 150. And then here's the TLT. Now, here's the daily chart of the TLT, okay? And this is interesting because the TLT has actually moved into an uptrend on the daily chart. So this is quite interesting, which tells me the rates will probably continue to drop. And of course, that means the TLT will continue to move up. And here's the shorter term 60-minute chart. You can see the bullish crossover back on the 14th of last month. And, it's maintained that uptrend ever since. It's hovering right around the 128.13 line. 128.13. Next objective to the upside is 129.69. GDX. Now here's the GDX. Money flow is positive, trend direction is positive, and it's very close to crossing into an uptrend. Hasn't quite crossed up yet, but nonetheless, it did take out the mid-band and is trading above the mid-band. So we know that on a pullback, that should offer support. And then here's the shorter-term chart. Look at this. I mean, this has been in a strong uptrend for a long time. And here are the levels as we look at them: 21.25, 24.25 and a quarter. Next upside level is 25.78. So the GDX has been showing just some compelling strength. All right, now, before I get into that, let me just see. Let's see if there's anything going on. All right, I don't see any questions. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's move on. I want to talk about some post-earnings trade. Okay, and here's the setup. The post-earnings, negative daily taken money flow and a bullish gap. Now, this was really interesting. Here's the example I'm going to show. NTNX. And this just reported Friday, I believe. But as you can see from this chart, negative money flow, okay. You know, this was a relatively new issue. That's why not all the indicators are plotting here. The only indicator that's plotting is the 50 and the 200. You can see the 50 is below the 200. Okay, basically it gapped up, hit the 200 EMA, which is 23.75. Okay, negative money flow. We scope down to the 30-minute, and here's what it gets compelling. Was also negative money flow on the 30-minute chart. Okay, and then it proceeded to, we go down to, well, let's go down to the 10-minute here. Here's the 10, okay, same thing as the 30, it gapped up above the upper band, okay, and basically this thing did what we would expect it to do, right? And the net effect, again, this doesn't have weeklies, but it does have monthlies. The 22.5 put went from 40 cents to 250 in 2 days on the bearish gap. And quite frankly, you would have closed well below the lower band anyway. But here's the other scenario that I want to point out. I mean, here we had the ability, this stock had the ability to get above the upper band on the earnings gap. And drove down, busted through the mid band, closed, it actually closed underneath the lower band. So now we know we have a scenario where it broke above the upper band, right? And look what happened since breaking below the lower band on my birthday, okay? So basically this stock ran from 24 down to 20, and then ran all the way from 20 to 23. This all happened in 4 days. And quite honestly, the logic would say, well, we took out the upper band. We do expect a retest of that upper band. And quite honestly, that happened today. So this was just a really incredible trading stock after earnings. I mean, went from, 24 down to 20, and then from 20 to 23. Excuse me. As I said, I know the 22 halves went from 40 to 250. It's tough to write with this thing. What'll be curious, and we'll look at that after I'm done here, but it'll be curious to see what the 20s ran from, the 20 calls. Okay, anyway. Here's the next one. Now, here's another example. This was the gap. Let's see here. All right. So this is basically the same scenario. Negative. This should be CMF. Boy, I got CMG on my mind. It's CMF, taking money flow, and a bearish gap. All right, so this is the same scenario, except we had a bearish gap. And here's the example. Yeah. Okay, so here's DICOM. You can see the tremendously bearish taking money flow up here. Okay. Excuse me. Bearish down gap, and then it bounced. So there's the 30-minute chart. Here's the bearish gap. You can see how it reversed, basically ran back up to the midband and took out the midband. And then here we can see MACD flip negative. Certainly, by the way, if you were long here and it went up to this area and you see it flip down, you'd be pulling the profit. But right in here, it's bearish. So now we want to look at the bearish side. So basically in 2 days, it's about $3 move down. You scope down to a 10-minute, and here's the 10. Basically, the gap held above the lower band on the 10 over here. Moved up, took out the mid band, which tells you most likely it's going to continue up. It did. And then this is kind of interesting because if you look down here, this was all primarily negative as the stock continued going up. Here we've got a top with negative money flow. And then finally, people took their profits and, it proceeded to drop. So it went from 82.32 down to roughly 79 in 2 days. So that's a nice little move. I don't know how liquid these options are. Okay, I'm going to state that as a fact. I don't think they're terribly liquid. Okay, so it's the kind of deal that you really have to try to pick the market maker in the middle somewhere. Yeah, I agree. This MACD right here, I've gotten to the point now where if I'm looking to short any of these kind of scenarios, I want to wait for that MACD to turn negative. And you can see the first time it turned negative was back here. But look what happened. It kind of continued to tick up. And then finally, money flow flipped negative. And then boom, you had the nice little pullback there. Okay, that's what I wanted to cover on the PowerPoint. And then we're going to take a look at some of these things live. Uh-oh. I don't know what the heck's going on here. For some reason, that's freezing up on me. I'm sorry. Okay, let me put the PowerPoint into the handout section. So it should be coming through. Huh. Huh. That's weird. Okay. All right. Now, let's take a look at DY and see if that continued to follow through. All right. Look what happened. It pulled back, okay, and it came back up to essentially retest that mid-band again. So money flow has still been negative. So the odds are this will probably continue down. Let's see what the 10 looks like. All right. 10 broke under it, and look where it stopped. Stopped right again, right at that mid-band on the 10. Negative money flow. So this, to me, here is your low-risk entry, right at the mid-band. It hit a pivot high of 80.32. The mid-band was 80.02. So if you got in there, your stop is essentially $80. And right now you get 60 cents into the trade. Not huge, but it hasn't really broken yet. All right, there's NX, that NTNX. You can see it stopped right at that upper band. Didn't quite hit it on the 10. But boy, that came right back to exactly the upper band. Now there's one today, RH. Right. RH gapped up tremendously. All right, look at that. Negative money flow, gapped up enormously. So this is a 43% pop off earnings. And at this point, all I was waiting for was, okay, let's see money flow flip negative, which it finally just did that. So to me, if this thing starts to reverse, obviously we've got, objective one is the low of that gap bar. The next objective is back to 65, which is the upper band. And then if it takes out the upper band, we'd be looking at half a gap fill. All right, so that low is 68.51. So you can see it's still trading within the body of that bar. That's interesting. The low for the day is 64.40, 67.42. That must be here. Huh. That doesn't make sense. Unless I'm missing something here. They're showing a low of 67.42. Which I don't see that print. Not sure where they're getting that from. Maybe that's an overnight print. I don't know. But intraday, the low is not that, is higher than that. So, I mean, at this point, there's a couple of things you want to see if you want to go short. Number one, ideally, a close under the low of that gap bar. Second thing is we already have another condition in place. The 10-minute has flipped negative on the MACD. So this will be interesting to see if this thing starts to finally break. But one of the problems, too, is this is such an extreme bullish gap that I'm curious if this thing will actually sell off. At this point, the odds do favor that. Okay, so we're hovering right around 2463 on the SPY. Let's take a look at the VIX. All right, 1190, still cannot get through 1250. So this is kind of an interesting situation because right now we're kind of in no man's land. We've had we had that big down bearish gap followed by the snapback, and now we're getting another day of, if you will, consolidation. So this is kind of interesting because, and I'll tell you why. If we look at the daily chart, okay, this is kind of setting up for a double inside day. Today's high is 2468. Yesterday's high is 2469.64. So we're about $1 above it yesterday, and of course the low is a higher low too. So we set up with a double inside day formation. Tomorrow could be a really strong day, or at least a powerful day if it breaks out. That's interesting. Oh, okay, so you found it. All right, good. All right. Anybody want to look at anything? Oh, by the way, I guess I have CMG on my mind because let's take a look at it. I think CMG is trying to bottom here. All right. We might get one more down thrust, but CMG I find compelling because, if you look at this, it's trading about 315. The mid band is 408. So it's about $100 away. All right, 60's getting close to moving into an uptrend. And the 30 is already in an uptrend. Okay, so I wouldn't buy CMG now. It's a little bit overbought, but I would wait for this to get oversold on the 30. But notice that the mid band is struggling to clear that mid band. Okay. All right. Anybody got any questions? That's what I wanted to cover today. Earnings season, we're kind of getting to the end of it. There's really not a lot happening right now. We had Coop report. Let's see what happened with that today. All right. Well, that pulled back. And the reason I say that is because I was looking at it, and again, this had negative money flow. Negative money flow, slightly negative, gapped above the upper band, and this one came down and stopped right at the mid band. So this thing dropped from 32.5, dropped about $2. Oh, what do we want to look at? We wanted to look at the options. So let's take a look at the 20. I want to see what the 20 call did. I don't even know what this company does. I've seen it before on the percent gainer list. Boy, this is expensive. This was about $1, a little over $1. So that went from $1 to it's probably $2.50 right now. Yeah, this is only monthlies on this deal. What's kind of interesting about this is that, boy, when it was underneath the lower band, the monthly 20 call was $1. That's a 5% return if you just bought it and sold that call. That's pretty good. Okay, now I realize. All right, the 22.5 put was so cheap because at this point it was almost 24. So that put was $1.50 out of the money when it was above the upper band. So that's where the leverage came from on the put side. Probably I don't know if there was a 24. I think the next closest was a 25 put. Let me take a look. Yeah, on the put side, the next put would have been a 25. So it was about $1 in the money. Really no volume on this thing. Yeah, so they were probably about 250 when the price had exceeded the upper band. Terrible. This has been one of these stocks that have really had a lot of like I said, I don't even know what they do, but they seem to get a lot of play. Look at this. This bottomed at 1438, ran up to 25. And now it's been just kind of consolidating here. The other one that reported today was VRNT that I was looking at. This is up, it's up 4%. But this was one where the ADX line was under 20 and it popped. The problem with RH was I didn't really have a bias for a big move here. And obviously it did have a big move. Now the question is, will it start to pull back here? Right now, it really hasn't done much of anything. We got a $5 intraday range roughly, opened at roughly 70, it's trading at roughly 70. So it really isn't doing much of anything. All right, so the XLE is starting to struggle. Interesting, because the resistance level I'm looking at is 65.38. It hit 65.25 today, and now it's starting to stall a bit. All right, let's see if it can clear. All right, now look, it's starting to reverse here. My feeling is the XLE really needs to clear 65.38, close above that for 2 days, and then I expect it to continue higher. If it doesn't, then I expect it to retest the lows and head down and probably take out the 62 area. So this will be very interesting to see if that complies or we see how it does react. The S&P, again, I mean, as it stands now, we're looking at, well, now it's starting to sell off. Okay. The low of yesterday, that's the level you really want to watch, is 24.59.20. Because my feeling is if it takes out that low, all right, then it's going to start to run. And it'll start to drop. Because RH, I think RH does have weeklies. Let's take a look here. Yeah, it does have weeklies. All right, so the 70, oh boy, they don't even show it here because at the time it was so far out of the money. A lot of people buying the 67 call. Yeah, I can't even get a quote on Yahoo. Not good. That's what happens when you have such a gap like that. Well, by the way, for grins, yesterday, RH was about 50.49. Curious to see what well, here's a 50.5. All right, the 50.5 closed at 360 yesterday. So they should be about $20 today. Boy, that's some trade. If you were so inclined to have a directional bias on this. I don't know. I mean, honestly, look, it's clear it's in an uptrend, okay? We know it took out the upper band, so we generally do expect a retest of the upper band. Look, it happened here, right? came back, took out the upper band again. But to me, this would have been a tremendous drawback in terms of, how do I say it, in terms of trying to trade this thing pre-earnings, on the long side. I'd be really kind of reticent to do that. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, the only one I see here was this 62 half had 1,200, over 1,200 contracts open interest. Let's see what they were. That's kind of interesting. Oh my God, they were 63 cents. Holy crud. Yeah, 63. They were solid 63 cents. I mean, think about that. They're basically $12 out of the money, and you're paying 60 cents for them. Somebody was willing to make that bet. Interesting, isn't it? Personally, I wouldn't have. I mean, if they were 30 cents, yeah, I if they were 30 cents, yeah, I get it. Maybe you risk a couple, $100. I get it. But this for 63 cents, that's crazy. But somebody knew something because they exploded. They were as high as almost $10. So if a guy had a 1,200 lot, now again, I don't know if they were put on yesterday, times $63, $75,000. I'm going to round it to 1,000. Okay, that's $1.2 million. So $75,000 turned into $1.2 million overnight. Somebody definitely knew something there. Crazy. All right. Well, that's really what I wanted to cover today. I'm continuing to watch this RH to see if we start to get a pullback here. But you see, the nice thing about this right now is this. All right, we know it's still trading within the body of that opening range, okay? We know now the first time on the 10-minute finally flipped negative, all right? Money flow still positive on the 10, all right? But here's the deal. You're not going to pull the trigger until you at least see another confirmation. And what I mean by that is this. Maybe the Williams cross down, maybe down here, the bearish D1 crosses above the bullish D1, and maybe, money flow flips negative. So it kind of can prevent you from just sitting there watching this thing do nothing. Because obviously right now we have a tremendous kind of back and forth between the bulls and the bears. So anyway, that's what I wanted to cover today. If there's any questions, shoot them through. If not, I'm probably going to close down, and then we'll convene again in 2 weeks. But that's really that's not what I wanted. That just sucks. All right, 2460, 2461. See, my feeling is today we're probably going to end up into the close with kind of a similar situation. Just kind of people getting churned. All right. Anyway, look, I think I'm going to close down for the day. I thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to again convening in 2 weeks. Have a great rest of the week, and I suspect the big news is we've got football season starting tonight, so that should be interesting. Thank you, and have a great day.